On our interview segment, we talked to former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Olisa Agbakoba. He gives suggestions on how the agitations for the Biafra people can be resolved and once again encourages the president to implement the recommendations from the National Conference. Thank you for talking to us. The last time we spoke, you asked the president to implement the recommendations of the National Conference, which you were a part of. But now you've been quoted as saying that the conference was too unwieldy and that it failed to galvanize an intellectual arm that ought to have driven the process. There appears to be some contradiction. When did you arrive at this new conclusion?
I was simply describing to you the challenges we faced getting to those conclusions. But somehow we got to the conclusions, and those conclusions, in my view, contain a lot of things that the president can work on. It may need tinkering, but the first conclusion was that we have a challenge with our federation. The second was we needed to structurally adjust. There were some discordant voices about quite how it will be adjusted. Some wanted strong regions. The Southwest wanted a strong region. The North generally wanted something different. So we came to some sort of conclusion which the president can work with. So that's my point. But that's not to say that the thing was not unwieldy. It was absolutely unwieldy, but it produced a result. So rather than throw it away, the president can deal with it and then solve our long-standing political challenges, which I think has held Nigeria back for far too long.
So let's talk specifics. What do you think should be the president's first steps?
Call a small committee of the representatives of Nigerians, and like it or not, you'll find them in the National Assembly or in the Houses of Assembly. Call maybe 40 of them and say, look, can you look at all the reports stretching back to IBB, Abacha, Abdul Salam, Obasanjo and Jonathan, and give me, in your considered opinion, what you think Nigerians would like to see, so I can present this as a bill for an act for the union of the peoples and nationalities of Nigeria. And my view is that if that is done, he needs to put his political weight behind it. If that is done, then we can all feel part of Nigeria. I mean, you're aware about the new agitation in Biafra. Country.
What do you think is the solution to addressing the issues of the Biafra agitators?
It's simple. Decentralize political power. You cannot have 98 items of power in the Constitution dealt with only exclusively by the federal government. 68 of them are exclusive to the federal government. The other 30, the federal government has first bite. If it doesn't want to bite, then the states have. So in reality, the states don't exist. This is not a federal system. This is a unitary system where all the power is allocated to Abuja. And as you know, everybody runs to Abuja for envelopes. We can't continue this way. So Abuja is unable to feel the presence of everybody across Nigeria. So decentralization or devolution is the way to solve our problem.
In the past, the government gave amnesty to militants. Some people also sought for amnesty for Boko Haram. And now Biafra agitators are seeking for financial inducement or settlement, as was done in the past. If we keep going down this route, isn't it an invitation for many more groups to come out seeking to blackmail government into meeting their demands?
And so what? And so what? The problem is that there is such despondency. The money that the elite steal, how about that? If you know how much the elite have stolen in Nigeria from the beginning of this so-called state, 1960 to date, it's in the trillions. So what is wrong with giving poor people money? I don't see what's wrong with that. If that will make them happy, and if that would include them, they've been excluded. The issue is about including the excluded. Are we the only ones entitled to this national loot? Put everybody in the equation. If it's to share it that rough way, then so be it, even though I don't like it. So the solution is to find a good way to put everybody in the picture. That's the way to go. But if in doing that, you have to resolve some immediate problems that you have allowed to fester, which includes, if you say inducement, but I won't call it inducement, I'll call it compensation. If you have had Biafran soldiers injured since 1966, sitting on Oji Road, don't you think they'll be angry enough? Their politicians come and deceive them. Give me your votes, I will go to Abuja and get something for you. Once they get in, they forget them. So it's time to really realize that this country is going nowhere unless we resolve all these issues, including Boko Haram, by the way.
But it is a valid fear that if we compensate these people, there could be many more groups springing up.
But they compensated the people of Niger Delta. President Yar'Adua did that, and he resolved the process, the crisis. What is wrong in dealing with the main problem? Which is to decentralize power, so that I can feel empowered in any part of Nigeria that I live. But if you're holding everything in Abuja, everything, I will feel disempowered. And then if I make trouble, it's because I'm looking for attention. It's a sort of emotional blackmail. So the long-term systematic solution is to say, you know what, take some of my power. What is the federal government doing with basic education? Give it to the states to do. There are lots of things. You know, I'm from Onitsha. The road from Onitsha to Enugu, as far as I remember, when I was in school, has never been finished. Each successive government comes in and allocates a contract. It's never finished. But if the thing was allocated to the government of whether Anambra or Enugu, it will be a different story. We know who we can hold accountable. How can a man in Karanamoda hold the governor of his state to account when the governor has nothing? So my thesis is simple. Devolve power to the states and make them viable. There's not a single state in Nigeria that is viable. You saw that when President Buhari came into office. The states couldn't pay salaries, so he had to bail them out. So let's stop this hypocrisy. It's time to say enough is enough. Let's make Nigeria viable. Or we say, look, let's pack it in. The time has come to face that tough decision that this country is not going to go anywhere with this political model.
Do you think the present crop of ministers are the change agents?
I hope so. That's the hope. Any new government that comes, we have hope. I like a couple of people there. I like Fashola. I like KF. I like Onyama. There are some good guys. We can only hope that they deliver on the promise of the president, which promise is remarkable because I particularly feel attached to the agenda of government, being myself a leftist. So when I see a leftist government, I identify with it. I'm not identifying with particular political people, but I identify with a party that has espoused what I have believed in since I was probably 20. So now I would wish the government success, every success in what they do. Quite whether they will succeed is the million-dollar question. So now we have ministers in place. We're looking to see what will happen by first quarter of 2016. Fashola has made a policy statement the other day about what he will do in power, on the roads. He's going to fix all the roads that need to be fixed where contracts have been allocated. If he can do half of that alone, the East-West Road, the Ibadan, Lagos, the one going into Onitsha, the Abuja-Lokoja exchange that takes in about 6 to 7 million Nigerians every day, then people can flow and move. Then there will be commerce, there will be business. That's how to open the country. So we can only wish them well. But whether they will do that is the challenge that confronts them.
You've been quoted as warning the government against the conspiracy of the elites. What do you mean by this?
Yeah, the elite are those people in positions of authority and privilege and have leadership, stature. You can find them in business, you can find them in the professions, law for instance, but most important, you find them in politics. Traditional rulers, church leaders, these are all together referred to as the elite. They stand between the governors and the governed, and how they perceive the governors is an important communication tool. So right now, unfortunately, the elites are thinking only of themselves. They have no interest in Nigerians, and that's why you have such a high level of poverty. Just ask yourself, in any reflection you do, whether you can count two Nigerians from this broad class that they ever speak to the issues of social inequality? Nobody. But they will tell you how to donate in churches. They will tell you how to buy their products. But they do not take an interest. They take an interest in wanting to be ministers, nothing wrong with that. They take an interest in wanting to participate in the spoils of government. And that's why corruption is rife. But just think that if they use that energy that they use to die to become ministers and governors and spend a third of it or 1/10 of it and transfer the energy to those who deserve it, how equal Nigeria will be. Those are the conspirators I warned President Buhari about, because they now want to use the Nigerian balance, dabaru his ideological pro-poor programs. So if he's not careful, it is quite possible for these conspirators, and they have amassed so much money, trillions and trillions of naira, that they can entrap anybody there and make that person do their bidding. And then the so-called commoners, for which President Buhari has eloquently laid out a social policy, will be frustrated.
The pro-Biafra agitation, the Boko Haram menace, and many other challenges confronting the country can be resolved if Nigerians feel happy enough to participate in the process of governance. And one way to make that happen is to decentralize political power. That's the view of my guest, Olisa Agbakoba, SAN. What do you think? Please share your thoughts, comments, and questions on any of our social media handles. If you missed any part of this program, you can find it in past episodes on our YouTube channel. I'm Shola Sheyeli. Thank you for watching.